Hi everyone, Rebecca from Classic Craft Studio. So today is the second part of our rope basket tutorials, and today we're going to be doing round baskets. So I'll be showing you how to make them and also how to make a nice fitted lid to go on top. Let's begin the circular basket. So we're going to cut our end nice and flush, straight up, and we're going to start just manually spiraling it. You want it to go around 3, maybe 4 times, just depending on how thick your rope is. So today I'm still using the 3mm braided cotton rope for this. And we're going to go around 4 times. Yeah. Take a pin, push it through your cord, all of the cords. If it will go all the way through, all the way to the other side like that. Okay. 1 pin should be enough to secure it if you've gone through all of your little circles like that. Right, now we go to the sewing machine. Show you the setup of the sewing machine. We're starting with a straight stitch now, not the zigzag. We're going to start on the straight and then we'll move on to the zigzag. Let's start with straight first. I'm going to keep my stitch length at a 2. We're ready to start sewing. So I'm going to hold my spiral so that the pin is sitting horizontally. I'm going to stitch 1 row going this way. Obviously I'll stop just before I get to the pin, remove it, continue the straight line. Then we're going to be sewing across and across like a pizza basically. That's how we're going to start off for the circular basket. So let's begin. Right, so here you can see I have my initial starting. So spiral 3 times round with I've made it into a pizza, so it's got 8 little wedges shapes. Now some people start like this and they'll continue their basket from this point doing the zigzag. I like to go back and start from the middle with my zigzag. So I've got this so everything's nice and secure, nothing's going to slip and slide as I'm trying to stitch. But I like the extra security of spiraling from the middle and working my way out to make a nice solid base. So for today I'm going to be making a waste paper basket. Right, to start the zigzag section, place it onto zigzag. We're going to leave it at a 2. My width here, I'm going to set it to a number 5. My needle position will remain in the middle. My tension will stay between a 3 and a 4. Okay, and then I'm using the satin stitch monogram foot. One could easily be using a standard sewing machine foot here, a foot J, but for today I'm using the monogram / satin stitch foot because it's nice and clear and it's just easy to see what I'm doing. Again, I'm using the contrasting thread against the white. It just shows up much nicer in the videos. It gives a nice effect, but you can also go white on white, up to you entirely. So slowly around the middle. Just doing those first initial stitches. Just get my thread out of the way. So here I'm effectively kind of going back into the middle, doing one zigzag out and in, one out and in, one out and in, until I've gone all the way around, and then I'll start on my second round of rope. I'll start going zigzagging. So I've gone all the way around. Now now I move to my second round out. Built up, but it's nice and secure there. Like I said, white on white looks much better. This is just, it looks a bit rough because of the different colors, but also once you've got the whole basket, you're not going to notice something like that. Okay, right, let's begin doing our spiral. So I'm going to start at this point here, work my way around, and then when I get to this point I'll start spiraling. Well, start adding the working rope into my spiral. Right, so I've got my initial start happening here. It's not terribly neat, but as I say, once you've got a whole basket happening, you're not going to really notice that. And obviously if you're doing white, match your colour thread to your rope, you're also not going to notice too much. Right, so from now I'm going to start here, stitching, start here, zigzag my way around, and then we'll start adding the working rope in to do the bigger and bigger spirals. So as you can see, I'm just going to spiral outwards now, just going zigzag, zigzag all the way, making sure my needle hits in either side of the rope, into the middle of each side of the rope, like that. Continue outwards until I've got the base the size that I'm looking for. I'm going to go with about a 15 centimeter radius circle before I start to go up on the sides. So let me get on with that, and I'll catch up to you once I'm a little bit further. Right, we're going to start going up the sides. We've got a 20 centimeter base. I know I said 15 before, but I decided that was a bit too narrow, so it wasn't going to give me a sturdy enough wastebasket. Okay, so we're going to go up our sides, 45-degree angle for the base. That's the part we're holding on that side there. Keep holding my base up towards the side of my machine like that. Keep stitching around until I've got the sides as high as I'd like them to be. I'll catch up with you then. I wanted to show you quickly how the basket is starting to curl up at the sides. I'm starting to form my side walls of my basket. I'm going to continue going around until my basket is as tall as I want it to be. So just to show you from this angle, we're holding the base of our basket as close as flush to the head of the machine as we possibly can, keeping it at that angle in order to get the sides as angled as we need them to be. Right, I'm going to continue, and I'll catch up to you when I've done a bit more. Right, just a little something to mention. As you're getting higher and higher up your basket, every time you stop to do a bobbin change, so I'm about to thread my third bobbin now. So at each bobbin change I stop and I do my repairs then, because it's quite difficult once you get to further up your basket to get down to these points again. So to check for where you need to repair, you just gently pull your basket and you'll see that there will be some points where you just literally, if all it takes is a millimeter to the wrong side, and you end up missing a little section. So I've got one little bit there, and then I've got another bit there to do. Right, so just to show you quickly how I do a repair. It's super easy, it's exactly the same as you've been doing really. Get to your spot where you need it to be. Secure your threads. So I start a little bit further away from where my gap is. My gap's only over here, but I can see here where I started to stitch skew. So I'm just going to repair from that point to just after the gap. But my actual gap, let me show you with the auto erasable marker. My actual gap is only from here to there. But to be very sure, we just repair a bit beyond that. Right. Okay, and that's all there is to it. You just go around your basket, check for any little gaps like that, and stitch them up. Right, I've decided that's my basket is high enough, so I'm going to come to the end. We take our working thread, a working rope, we cut it at an angle like this. I guess that's roughly 45-degree angle. Right. Try not to touch your edge too much because you don't want it to fray, but it will happen a little bit. You can always trim them all afterwards if you need to. There I have my finished basket. We finished our base of our basket, so now we're going to make our fitted lid that goes over the top. So to start with that, we need to figure out what size it needs to be. So in this case it's 24 centimeters. We're going to start the lid the same way as we started the base of the basket. So we cut our end flush. Start with a nice tight little spiral. Again, we're going around 3 to 4 times. And we get our pin, push it through the center there, catching each of those rounds as we go. Right, then we're going to get onto our machine. So again, we're going to be stitching, that's our pin going horizontally, we're going to stitch a line vertically to start, stopping just before we get to the pin, so to remove it, and then carry on through. And so because I'm going to be zigzagging over it, I'm going to just leave it with a 4, and then we'll start going around just so you can see the difference. Okay, so again I'm going to start in the middle, spiraling out till I get to this point, and then just start adding that in. So you may have noticed that I'm using a heavy-duty sewing machine for this project. It's not necessary, it just happens to be the machine that I have out. I like to use this one for big projects like this because it sews so lovely and quickly, much faster than a normal sewing machine. But in terms of the actual physical strength of the machine, this can easily be done on an ordinary domestic sewing machine. Right, so I've finished stitching on the center of my little spiral. I'm going to continue going out in concentric circles and just keep zigzagging around and round until I get to the same size as the radius of the base. Okay, so I've now finished stitching my lid, as you can see. Finished the flat part. I'm going to put a little loop here in order to have a little handle happening in the middle. Then I'm going to continue the edges going down the sides to make it a lid that fits onto its base nicely. So I've done the lid slightly dome shaped, that's just to give a bit of extra space. Right, so in order to try and get the edge of my lid as sort of 90-degree angle as possible, really I'm going to hold this super high and then lay my cord at a 90-degree angle to where it was before. So instead of gently sloping it, I'm going to be trying to create quite a harsh line of stitching there. So my top is going to fold over like this because the important part we're stitching is here. And we're trying to get these to link up at a sort of as much of a 90-degree angle as one can in the circumstances. Okay, so I'm back to where I started the sides of the lid. So from now onwards we're going to stitch with these two cords lying next to each other, parallel to each other. So as I'm guiding it, I'm holding it over the work that I'm doing, but where it's stitching is forming, it's just overlapping ever so slightly. So once you've got your side lip angle established, then you continue to sew as you did for the base, where you're just holding the bottom of your basket, or in this case the lid, flush up against the edge of the machine here, the head of the machine, and you're just stitching two parallel lines next to it. I'm happy with how deep my base, the lid is going to be, the lip of the lid is. So I'm going to finish off here and then make the handle. Okay, so again as before, cut off 45-degree angle. Right, so what we're creating today is essentially a thread wrap cord. It's got a number of uses. You could use it in textile jewellery. You could use it for incorporating it into a rope basket to create a line of colour. What I'm going to use it for today is I'm making a handle for my circular rope basket. We're going to set our machine to a zigzag. Okay. Our width we're going to set to the highest possible width on this machine. It's a 6. My length, my stitch length, so that's the distance between the zigzags, I'm going to set to a 1. So the width is the height of my zigzag, and the length is the distance between the two zigzag stitches. Everything else remains the same. I'm going to put my needle in the middle center position and my tension at a 3.5. So I'm not going to start right on the very edge. I like to give myself a few centimeters there, just right. Right, my apologies if this is a bit shaky. I'm holding it in my hand to do this. You can see that the stitches are forming on either side of the cord as opposed to piercing into the cord. Okay. You can see that. they're not actually piercing the cord itself, they're falling on either side, and that's forming a nice continuous covering of the cord. Okay, again I'm going to use, although this satin stitch foot has got a little groove underneath, when you start to stitch you can sometimes need to just help it a little bit. So I use my threads, the start and end points of the threads, or my starting threads, and my rope, and I just ever so gently help it under the foot. Once it gets going, you're fine. Then you just need to guide it. I'm going to stop there. I would like a more solid colour. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to swap my cord around, my needle, to that side. Then I'm going to go over that bit again, just to create a bit more of a solid line. Right, I'm happy with that. I don't want to go any further and do another row, because the more thread you add, the stiffer this is becoming. So I don't want to get it to the point where it's too stiff to bend and that my machine is going to struggle too much to go through. So with this, so I've done it now 3 times. You'll have to just experiment with your sewing machine. All sewing machines are different. I know that because this is a heavy duty, it can handle going through quite thick threads, but your ordinary sewing machines may not be able to handle this quite so well. So I'm just going to make a little spiral on the top of my basket. So for that I'm taking where I've done my cord, bending it in half, and then I'm just going to curl it to itself to make that spiral. Okay, and again, as I did for the beginning of the basket, I'm going to just stitch through it with straight stitch, just to keep it all in place. Alright, so because of the stiffness of the rope, now that I've added the colour thread to it, I can't put a pin right through, so I'm literally having to just hold it between my fingers pretty tight because it keeps slipping out, and then get that underneath my foot. I'm keeping my stitch length at a number 1 for this, so it's a very small stitch length. That's just to create the strength for the spiral. And again, I'm doing that pizza shape, the asterisk, going through the center at least 3 if not 4 times. I feel like that is secure enough. I've left that little bit there because I'm going to use that when I'm stitching it down to the lid. So let me stitch like that and like that. I'm just going to try and do a little bit more overcast zigzag stitch over here, just so that I can have a bit of extra colour when I'm easing it onto the basket. Right, so here we've got the lid of our basket, and here we've got the handle that we're going to be attaching. So the first thing you want to do is, it's always easier to stitch onto a flat surface. So I'm going to turn my lid, turn them inside out effectively. So I'm now working onto this flat surface here. Take my spiral that I'm going to put in the middle, and I'm going to be attaching it with the zigzag stitch on it as a little spiral in there. Okay. So this is entirely up to you what shape you do, how you attach it, that sort of thing. You just got to play around, see what works for you. This happens to be what works for me. So. Again, it's pretty tricky to pin this on, so I'm just going to have to hold it in place as I'm stitching and then I'll hold the other side in place. The important thing is that my spiral is in the middle and it's matching up to the center of the basket lid. Like that. Okay, so to attach our handle to our base, we're going to go back to our zigzag stitch, put it back at a stitch length of 2, so it's not creating too much of a stiff thread as you're stitching it down. And then my width of my zigzag I'm going to put back to a 5. Fold it over the center where I want it to be, and then I'm going to stitch down over the little arm of the curve there. Okay, so I've got it in place. I've got it as close to the spiral as I can get without actually stitching into the spiral itself. And I'm going to just do the first few stitches and then sort of try and shape this thing quite sort of in a decorative fashion. You can of course you can do any shape you want with this, it's up to you. I'm just doing a very nice simple shape. And reinforce your ends very well. I'm leaving the end a little bit tufted, I think it's quite a nice effect. And now we're going to repeat on the other side. Now I'm going to turn my basket lid back right side out. Take my little handle, trim any edges, any threads I mean. There we've got our completed circular basket, complete with lid. Thanks for joining me for today's tutorial on round road baskets. Please remember there's a lot more tutorials and information available on classiccraftstudio.com. If you like this video, please hit the like button. If you'd like to see more of my videos, please remember to subscribe to my channel. And if you have any comments or questions, please enter them in the comment section below. Thanks for watching.